Help! Daddy's locked me in. The sudden phone call from my 5-year-old daughter made my eyes widen. I had left her with my husband at home while I was busy at work. Who would have thought I'd get such an SOS call when he was supposed to be watching her? There's smoke too. Get me out of here quick. Not knowing what on earth was happening, I rushed out of the office in a panic. And when I finally reached home, what I saw before me was an unbelievable sight. I married Anthony when I was 26, after being introduced by an acquaintance. We worked for completely different companies, but our values were similar, and we nurtured our love smoothly. After our daughter Dakota was born, we supported each other through the bewildering experience of first-time parenting. I naively thought we'd continue to live happily as a family of 3. Next to my always smiling husband and daughter, I was carefree in my thoughts. However, around our 6th year of marriage, dark clouds began to loom over our peaceful daily life. Honey, tomorrow's Dakota's 5th birthday. You'll be able to come home early, right? No, that might be tough. Probably impossible. What? Really? I thought I'd asked you to keep that day free a while back. It's work, can't be helped. It's just a birthday anyway, you'll just eat cake. You two can handle it yourselves. With those words, Anthony headed off to work in a bad mood. So Daddy won't be celebrating with us. Looking at my daughter sitting at the table with a glum face after watching her father's back disappear, I felt helpless. The sudden change in our once happy life was none other than Anthony's attitude. He gradually stopped coming home, and the days we didn't see his face increased. When I asked why, my husband always insisted he was busy with work and wouldn't really talk to me. That wasn't the only thing that changed. There's a sale today. I'd better stock up. After dropping Dakota off at daycare, I sighed as I took out my notebook from my pocket. At the same time Anthony stopped coming home, he suddenly became extremely strict about money. My husband started managing even my income, and the living expenses he handed over were only $300 a month. I couldn't even buy proper clothes for our daughter, so I had to dip into my own savings to buy what Dakota needed. If it was just about saving money, I would have cooperated, but he went as far as warning me, "Don't waste money just because it's close by," when I went to the nearest store. It seemed he didn't want me to spend any money at all. Even then, I still believed in Anthony. I told myself that he was just stressed from work and temporarily irritable. Although something felt off, I decided to watch over him and support him. However, contrary to my expectations, Anthony's attitude only escalated. As he spent less and less time at home, he gradually started pushing all responsibilities related to Dakota onto me. Childcare is a woman's job, isn't it? You're her mother, so make sure you balance work and properly discipline her. Until then, he would look after our daughter when I had to work on holidays. But with those cold words, he stopped cooperating with childcare even during the little time he spent at home. Our parents and in-laws lived a bit far away, so we couldn't rely on them, and I couldn't leave 5-year-old Dakota home alone. So, without telling him, I decided to buy a cell phone for children with my own money. Is this for me? Yes, but it's only for contact. You can't play games on it. And this is a secret from Daddy. If anything happens, call Mommy, okay? That's how I ensured our daughter's safety and decided to have her stay home alone only when absolutely necessary. Anthony's attitude continued to worsen after that. Not only was he never home, but for some reason, he started treating me with obvious disdain. I've been thinking for a while, but you really can't do anything, can you? I feel like I've been scammed, ending up with such a useless wife. How can you say such things? You're the one who chose me, aren't you? That's why I regret it. Please, just divorce me already. Every time we met, he would say hurtful things to me, overturn the food I'd made, and eventually even demanded a divorce. At first, I thought maybe I had done something wrong and tried to make amends with Anthony. But even when I asked for a reason, he wouldn't tell me anything and just shut himself in his room. What should I do? To be honest, my heart was close to breaking. Still, with little Dakota to think about, I vowed not to get divorced and kept trying to persuade him to reconsider. But looking back now, that might have been the worst decision. One day, an unimaginably terrible incident occurred. That day, there was trouble at work, and even though it was my day off, I suddenly had to go in. As usual, thinking I probably couldn't rely on Anthony, I was about to ask Dakota to stay home alone. But this time, he was different. I'll look after Dakota, so you go to work. It's urgent, right? Unusually, he didn't go out and offered to take care of our daughter himself. However, with the talk of divorce hanging in the air, I felt greatly confused and anxious about his sudden change in attitude. Still, I couldn't deny that his offer was helpful. Really? Then I'll leave her to you. Dakota, be a good girl, okay? Unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold, I left our daughter with him and went to work. About an hour after I arrived at work, it happened. As I was working hard, trying to get back home as soon as possible, I received a phone call. When I checked, it was from Dakota, who was supposed to be with Anthony. What's wrong? I answered the phone quickly, feeling uneasy. The next moment, help. Daddy's locked me in. Those words jumping into my ear confused me. Dakota. What do you mean? I don't know, but there seems to be smoke too. Get me out of here quick. Hearing my daughter's cry, on the verge of tears, I found myself rushing out of the office and jumping into my car before I knew it. I didn't understand the situation well, but I knew Dakota wouldn't lie about something like this, and it was clearly an emergency. What on earth happened? What is Anthony doing? On my way home, I tried calling my husband while panicking, but he didn't answer at all. Soon, I started seeing fire trucks heading in the direction of our house, and my anxiety grew immensely. Dakota, please be safe. However, despite my prayers, an unbelievable sight was waiting for me when I reached our home. No, this can't be happening. The moment I got out of the car, I covered my mouth at the intense heat. Our house, which had been normal just a few hours ago, was now engulfed in bright red flames. For a moment, I was dumbfounded, but remembering my daughter who had been calling for help, I instinctively tried to rush towards the house. However, I was stopped by people around me and ended up falling to my knees on the spot, helpless. Dakota might be suffering in that sea of fire. How did this happen? As I muttered weakly, a cheerful ringtone sounded. Still in a daze, unable to accept reality, I picked up my phone and widened my eyes the moment I saw the screen. It was an email from my husband, with a casual message saying, "I suddenly have to go on a business trip for work. Can't look after Dakota anymore, so get back home early." Seeing such a nonchalant message, as if it had nothing to do with him, I was crying with anger. How irresponsible, not even knowing the situation. Having lost our house filled with so many memories, and more importantly, my precious daughter, I felt a clear sense of hatred towards my husband for the first time. The next morning, I was standing in front of Anthony's workplace. At that time, I was shaking with anger like I had never experienced before. Until then, I had endured no matter how terribly he treated me. That was because I had convinced myself that if only I endured, it would be fine. However, thinking about the tragedy that had befallen our daughter, my sadness and anger were uncontrollable, and I couldn't possibly forgive his actions. I won't let him get away with this. After waiting for a few minutes, burning with anger, Anthony appeared in his familiar suit, heading to work. "Ha! Why are you here?" The moment he saw me, he stepped back, looking shocked. "Good morning." "Oh. Weren't you on a business trip?" I was just about to leave. I got a sudden call yesterday." Is Dakota doing okay?" As he stumbled over his words, piling up excuses, I felt my blood boiling. There was a fire, and our house burned down completely. "I see. That's unfortunate. So, what happened to Dakota?" His theatrical way of speaking finally made me snap. Anthony didn't seem to realize it yet, but by that time, I already knew the whole story of the incident. How could she escape? "You locked her in." Surprised by my sudden shout and the content of my words, Anthony stiffened. Glaring at him, I was recalling the events of the previous day. Dakota managed to survive. And I know everything you did now. Perhaps it was a blessing in disguise, but shortly after arriving at our burning home, I was informed by a paramedic that our daughter was safe. Although our house had burned down, a neighbor had discovered the fire and immediately called an ambulance. The fact that the source of the fire was far from the children's room where Dakota was also contributed to her survival. Dakota was injured but not life-threateningly, and was resting in the hospital. Besides our daughter, there was one more thing that survived the sea of fire. Actually, I bought a cell phone for children without telling you. Ha! What does that matter? I silently took Dakota's cell phone out of my bag and showed it to my husband. What survived along with our daughter was the children's cell phone. Apparently, Dakota had been secretly playing in her room, recording videos. And then, she was locked in from outside by Anthony. Everything you did to Dakota was clearly captured on video. Luckily, the remaining footage had recorded not only our daughter's desperate voice of resistance but also my husband's voice saying, "You stay here. Don't you dare come out." After doing such a thing, to even set the house on fire. It's truly unbelievable. Imagining again the fear our daughter must have experienced, I felt overwhelmed. How terrifying it must have been for her to be treated like that by her own father. However, even after such an irreparable situation, Anthony seemed intent on continuing to feign ignorance. Wait a minute. Sure, I locked Dakota in the room, but that was to keep her from going outside on her own. Why are you blaming me for the fire too? Surprisingly, instead of apologizing, he frowned and showed an irritated expression. However, it was too late for him to try to escape now. You're still saying such things. We have all the evidence. You know there's a store behind our house, right? At that moment, Anthony gasped, and I smirked. The source of the fire was in the backyard, so when I checked, the security camera installed at the store behind our house had captured Anthony setting fire to the house with gasoline and a lighter. Don't think you can get away with doing such a horrible thing. Still angry, I took a step closer to him. Why did you do this in the first place? Although what he did was absolutely unforgivable, if he had shown even a little remorse, my feelings might have softened somewhat. It's because you have no charm as a wife. However, unbelievably, my husband doubled down and started excitedly explaining the circumstances. I met my soulmate. A woman many times better than you. Anthony said he fell in love at first sight with a woman he met at a bar on his way home from work. He continued to approach her, and their relationship developed into something like lovers. My husband, who had become infatuated, lavished money on her and eventually even started thinking about marriage. That was probably why he stopped coming home, became harsh towards me, and kept pushing for divorce. It's your fault for not agreeing to the divorce. Apparently, Anthony thought I couldn't bring myself to divorce because of our daughter when I stubbornly refused. So he decided to get rid of Dakota through the fire. Furthermore, he had lied about the business trip because he planned to stay at his mistress's house for a while, leaving me to handle everything like our daughter's funeral. I was planning to use the insurance money and fire insurance to spend on her. After spilling out all his true feelings, Anthony bit his lip, looking frustrated. He was probably just frustrated that his plan had been ruined, not feeling any remorse. As proof of that, Anthony suddenly glared at me. You've ruined everything. What are you going to do about this? And then, in a fit of rage, he reached out towards me with tremendous force, trying to attack me. However, we were right in front of his company. Probably sensing that something was unusual about our interaction, people around us had been watching the situation unfold. The moment Anthony grabbed my collar, a sharp male voice called out, "Stop that." Taking advantage of my husband's hesitation, several security guards rushed out from the company's entrance and quickly restrained him. Stop it. Let go of me. Looking down at my husband, pathetically pinned to the ground, I rubbed my arm. To think I had been living for years with such a terrifying person who burned down our house, tried to harm his own daughter, and then attempted to hurt me when he was found out, just the thought of it made my skin crawl. I had stayed with him for Dakota's sake all this time, but it turned out to be the opposite. For Dakota's sake too, stay away from us forever. At my words, Anthony finally gave up trying to escape and hung his head. And so, our marriage, which was supposed to have been happy, came to a permanent end. Later, I ended up divorcing Anthony. After being surrounded by security guards, he was taken to the police station and arrested on suspicion of arson. It was only natural, given the decisive evidence. Although Anthony won't be able to leave prison for a while, I don't intend to forgive him just for that. Currently, I'm demanding a total of $250,000 in damages from Anthony for 3 counts: burning down our house, endangering our daughter's life, and infidelity. From now on, Anthony will undoubtedly be unable to lead a decent life. On the other hand, I have moved into a new house with Dakota, who has recovered, and we're gradually regaining our peaceful life. From now on, I intend to watch over my daughter's growth in this new environment.